Like, of course, the shooting of 2 NYPD officers. Who is this?
911.
Oh, here's the.
Sure and I'm asking.
It's happening live right now.
The media to please get this message out. If you hear someone make a physical threat against a police officer, if you see something on social media that is a threat against a police officer, call 911 immediately. We would much.
Hi, 911. The mayor.
Information than too little.
I'm turning in the mayor and Al Sharpton.
Mark.
How about that? How come they don't have the microphones on the press in these press conferences? Don't they know how this shit works? We at home would like to hear.
Mark, I think the point here is
it's not too.
We're in a very difficult moment.
Here it is. Here's his way of
our focus has to be on these families, and we are in a season again that's.
I wonder which one is the piece of shit.
That's supposed to be a time of peace. It's supposed to be a time of reconciliation. I have, throughout my public life,
how about a smile?
Disrespect for the NYPD. It's very well documented.
Wow, this guy a piece of shit.
Right?
I also think in a democracy that people express their desire for a more fair society, and that's right and proper as well, but they must do it peacefully. Can be no violence, and certainly can be no violence against those who protect us and who represent our society. The police are our protectors, and they must be respected as such. But
really?
Yeah, where the fuck have you been for the last month saying that?
Most important reflection
fucking pale as shit.
Right now
he's a fucking pale as shit. He, for the last month, has done nothing but let these fucking cops get their dick kicked in the fucking street.
Yeah.
On all these protests and telling the bosses there to sit back, don't make arrests, don't take any action without whether it's a chief or a captain or somebody telling them to do it. That fucking guy is the biggest disgrace walking this earth.
Jesus.
He's got some fucking set of balls, and the cops turning their back on him.
Yes.
Hooray for turning your back on him, because he's a pale as shit. And they're calling for retired guys to go out there and block him from going to funerals. I'll be a fucking guy laying in the street blocking him, because he can go fuck himself.
That's it. He doesn't deserve the honor of being at any of these officers' funerals. It just he is, as Keith said, a pail of shit. I've had a lot of arguments with people over the weekend about culpability and responsibility. This was a lone solo gunman, mental problems, all the. But I never said that there's an arrestable culpability with the mayor or Reverend Al or the protesters and even the people that were chanting, what do we want? Dead cops, when do we want it now? But there is a responsibility. And there's a responsibility in words and what you say. And they have been painting the police department as racist. They have been painting Brown and Garner as victims of police brutality and racism, and spreading outright lies about what happened and the circumstances of Brown and Garner's deaths. And all it has done is spread false information and incited people to, at the very least, distrust the police, and at the very most, kill the police. And it runs the gamut in between of how people think about the police department. It's all of, that was a tweet. If you don't think this murder was influenced by the nonstop coverage of lies, protests, and anti-cop rhetoric, then agenda is clouding your vision. And that is absolutely true. The media never let up. The mayor didn't let up. The protesters, the race mongers like Reverend Al did not let up on this hands up, don't shoot fiasco, outright lie that was put out there that people believed. And if you push this to people, if you push that Mike Brown was on his knees, his hands up. He said, "Don't shoot." And a cop shot him in the head. And then he was not indicted by a racist grand jury. If you pound this into people's heads, someone is going to want revenge for this crime, for this injustice that, by the way, never, ever happened. So culpability, these motherfuckers, yeah, I think they share in some responsibility for what happened to the two officers. Was it a lone gunman? Yes. Did he have mental problems? I submit to you that if you shoot two cops, you have mental problems. Regardless, anyone that walks up to a police car and shoots two cops has some type of mental problems. That doesn't mean you're relinquished of any responsibility for your actions, or that you weren't influenced by people that did nothing but pound the police department 24 hours a day on the news services. That's all you saw. I can't breathe. Chokehold. Killed in the street by racist cops. Again, more bullshit. There was never a chokehold on that guy, and he was never choked out. He wasn't suffocated by a cop. The cop let off of his throat the second he was on the ground, as he was saying, I can't breathe due to medical reasons. But what did we get? The cop choked him to death. He died for selling cigarettes. Mike Brown died for stealing cigars. Leave out the part where he punched the cop in the face, tried to take his gun, and then when you bring that up, it never happened. Again, never happened. Because more lies upon lies that were perpetrated and perpetuated by the media and Reverend Al and the protesters. So you put all this together, you lump it all together. The mayor saying how his son had to be taught to how to act around the police because they're so dangerous. How about this? You behave in front of the police. There you go. And then if you have a problem, you go to the proper authorities. How about that?
That statement that you just said about what he told his son, that right there is totally inflaming the whole fucking situation.
Exactly.
He's pandering to all these people. They go out in the street. They chant for dead cops.
Dead cops.
They chant for, for the cops to get hurt. And what does he do? He does fucking nothing.
Nothing.
He sat back. He lets it happen. You don't let people take. You want to peacefully protest? That's fine. Go ahead. But you're going to take to the streets. You're blocking traffic. You're blocking bridges. You're doing all these things.
Interfering with Yeah.
Giuliani was on on CNN. It was all over Facebook and everything. He had a great speech. And he said, look, he couldn't have prevented what happened to these two cops. It happened. No. But what did he say? He said that would never have happened during his administration. And the man is 100% right.
Yeah.
Because when he came in and he did it, I'm sorry you didn't get to act the way you wanted to act in your community. And he was breaking, had us coming down and doing this and doing that. But you know what? The city was a better place.
Yeah.
The city was under control. And when things happened, what did they do? You went in there and you handled your business. Because right now, nobody's going to be able to do it. The police cannot go out there now. And they cannot do any enforcement. They cannot take this back because he's given them way too much. You can't do it. There has to be a line that you draw and you say, okay, that's it. There's no more in the street. There's no more blocking the bridge. But then what does he do? He ties the cops' hands and he doesn't allow them to do it. So now here we are in a situation where 110%, all their actions, every fucking reporter, every politician, everybody that stood there and put their hands up, your sports figures, everybody, you fucking did this.
Yep.
You did this to our society. You made this happen now.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Everyone that perpetuated that lie, that fucking lie that made these thugs into martyrs and heroes and victims, every one of those people that did that have some hand in this, have some fucking hand in making the culture and making the environment that made it possible for these two officers to be killed, executed like they were by this piece of shit. And believe me, if by a miracle, if a miracle had happened and somebody would have seen this guy before he was able to kill those officers and shot him in the street, there would be people that would have had a problem with that. That's the environment we've made for ourselves. These two officers were not even in their own precinct. They were sitting in front of a piece of shit housing project that someone decided needed 24-hour police surveillance on it because of all the bullshit that was going on. Because some people are incapable of policing themselves and giving proper information to the police to try to cut down on the crime in their neighborhoods and communities.
And we talked about the whole Eric Gardner thing. And I'll tell you right from where all this shit comes from. Because you know what? When you're in a precinct and you're in the management level, I was in the management level, you get to go down to police headquarters and you get to sit there and you get to stand at a podium and you do what's called ComStat, which all the higher ups, the chief, the commissioner, everybody, they're all there with all these other precincts around the city. And you get called up and you stand at the podium and you could have a banner fucking day. You could have crime down. You could have all the right answers. And you know what they're going to do? The police department and the politicians, the police commissioner's office sends people out from his office, sergeants and lieutenants out. The mayor's office sends people out, and what do? You know what they do? They'll take a picture of Eric Gardner standing there selling cigarettes, and after you had a great day and your crime is down and everything's good, on this huge fucking 40-foot screen, they'll shoot a picture of Eric Gardner standing there, and they'll say, and they'll do research on him. They'll find out who he is. They'll find out what he's been arrested for, and they'll say to the inspector or the captain of the precinct, or if I'm the special ops lieutenant, they'll say, what are you doing about this guy? Why is this guy standing there? Or a homeless guy laying down? They create the fucking problems like the Eric Gardner because the cops don't give a fuck about Eric Gardner. They'll pass him by 1,000 fucking times and they won't do anything about it. But then when you go there and you got to get your dick kicked in because the city, the mayor's office, or the higher ups in the police department come up with this bullshit things for you to do, that's when problems like that occur.
Now you like you said, everyone's feeling good and proud of their job they've done because they've actually contributed to real crime fighting and making the city better. And then you get shit on because you gotta fucking hear your bosses say, why is this motherfucker standing out in front of a store? Like, you wouldn't have bothered with, like, who gives a shit?
No, absolutely
He's selling
not.
his dumb cigarettes.
And that's exactly what would happen. You felt so good. You had all the right answers. And then because they have nothing to kick your dick in, they throw that picture of a homeless guy. They throw that picture of some guy selling CDs or some other bullshit petty crime, and they put it up there and they say, what are you doing about it? Why did we find this?
Unfucking believable.
You'll never, ever walk out of that room feeling like you won. They will find a way to fuck you every single time you're there.
And then you get a situation where, the cops took down Eric Garner, took him down and put him on the ground like they did 1,000 times in the past with people, and he dies. He dies. And instead of it being the fact that, he was diabetic and asthmatic and way overweight, heart problems, all this shit, instead of that, it's the brutal, racist police once again being the evil entity that they are. And then with the more people that say this, you get somebody like this fucking piece of shit down there in fucking, where was he? Baltimore, Maryland?
Baltimore, yeah.
Baltimore. And he shoots his girlfriend and decides, I'm going to go up there and kill a couple of cops because of what's been going on with police brutality and police racism. Because of things like the protesters and Samuel Jackson's little song and the mayor telling everyone how he has to warn his black son about the police department. Meanwhile, odds are, if he wasn't the son of the mayor and didn't have security detail, I think it would be a little better to tell your black son about the dangers of being around other black men, because that seems to be the number one issue with black men dying, being killed by other black guys.
And if the cops on that man's security detail had any fucking balls, they'd walk out on him.
Just walk.
Just walk out.
Can't make it in today. Not feeling good. Fuck that. So, and he has to tell the public, what good did he think it would do to get up in front of a microphone and address the state, the city, and say that he had to tell his son how dangerous it is to be around the cops and how he had to act in a certain way in front of the police. How about, you tell your kids how to act in front of the police. Behave, be respectful, don't break the law, don't resist arrest. And that's how you act. Not if you're black or just as a human being. How about that? How about the fact that if there wasn't so much interaction between police and the black community, there wouldn't be that many problems? You know, the more interaction you have between anyone, it's just a numbers game at that point. The more problems there's going to be. The more solutions there's going to be, but there's going to be more problems also. But, for some reason, the black community has to have the police involved all the time.
And we're the scapegoat. And
of course.
Thinking back to it, like you just said about that, stop, question, frisk.
Right.
That had to be discontinued. And one of those things with stop, question, frisk, there'd be times when I would get called into my boss's office, and he would say to you, he would look at the cop's activity, and he would say, there's not enough stop, question, frisks for the month. And you would have to put those guys out there, and they would ask, have them do 2 a month. You know what? If you don't run into it, you don't run into it.
Right.
But there it is once again, coming from the top. They want to know why aren't your guys stopping enough people? Mm-hmm. And then you have to go out there. And look, I wouldn't make that shit up, and I wouldn't let my cops make that shit up.
Right.
But you get bosses that would do it because they're scared, because you're getting pressure from the higher ups to tell you, hey, have your guys go out there. We want more stops.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know there were actually a quota on how many stops you had. If it's supposed to be, I would gather that if you saw somebody that you had reason to believe might be doing something illegal, I don't know, might be, what was the criteria for stopping somebody at that point?
You would get, all right, if they're hanging around the corner, if you saw them once or twice, stop them.
Okay.
And there would be situations when it wasn't warranted.
And then if you're not necessarily going to frisk, you would then talk to them, and if you got some kind of a weird reaction from them, you would frisk?
Yeah, once you're interacting with them, I mean, it depends on where you are.
Uh-huh.
Look, you know what? I worked in predominantly white neighborhoods towards the end of my career.
Yeah.
And if there was a black guy standing out there, there would be certain supervisors who would tell you, tell his cops, go over there and frisk him.
Uh-huh.
Stop him. See what he's doing.
Interesting. A little profiling going on, I guess.
Listen, it happens.
It does happen. I know. That's why also people are like, oh, Anthony, cops can do no wrong. We've featured plenty of material on this show where we're like, oh boy, that wasn't quite the thing to do. And Keith himself has pointed out some videos where we were like, wow, that guy's going to be in trouble. He fucked up. Things like that. But you can't look at this situation and not agree 100% that these cops had no chance, and there was no reason to be gunned down while you're sitting in your car trying to protect a housing project. Just ridiculous. And to think that this guy, that mental illness, can just write off what this guy did is ridiculous again. He stated in so many social media posts that this is what he was going to do. And why he was going to do it, it's pretty simple. And again, you can't just throw mental illness in there. Of course he's mentally ill. You don't just go blasting people and not have a screw loose. But that doesn't mean you can't have been influenced by what's been going on, especially in the news.
He fucking hashtagged it.
Yeah, he hashtagged it. I mean,
he hashtagged it and said that's what Eric Gardner and Mike Brown. He hashtagged it.
Yeah.
There's no denying that his motive was exactly what he came out there for.
Right.
And because of everything that the media, the politicians, and all these famous people, or everybody who wants to have their fucking moment with their protester shirt, and they want to be, everyone wants to, be a part of it. How about you do me a favor? Your sports figures, play fucking sports. Okay.
There you go.
your musicians, just sing the fucking music.
Sing the fucking
Sing
song.
the music. You go to concerts. I remember the Beastie Boys coming out. Do me a favor. I like the Beastie Boys. Shut the fuck up and sing. just don't talk.
Yeah. When they start getting into their pontificating, when the Rams came out and were wearing the hands up, don't shoot, and then the I can't breathe shirts on the basketball team, and fucking, it's infuriating because, like I said, that is perpetuating a lie. It's a lie, and that lie is incendiary. It's a lie that will make people act. And like I said, at the very least, it's this distrust of the police, and at its very most, it's what we saw. 2 innocent cops getting killed because of this rhetoric that was going on. Let's open up the floor here, of course, to Joe Walsh. Joe! Here is he there? Hello? Joe?
I'm here.
There he is. How you doing, Joe? Rat had to press a button. He was very nervous. On the phone, of course, Joe Walsh, at Walsh Freedom on Twitter. You also have, I guess, a program here, of course. In Chicago, you're on WIND AM 560 from 5 to 8 p.m. And New York City, WNYM AM 970 from 5 to 7. I love your Twitter feed. You're another one of these, what I like to call the voice of reason, which is most people do not believe. But there aren't many people that are outspoken and want to speak honestly about a lot of these subjects. And you're one of them, though. Welcome, Joe Walsh.
Hey, Anthony, thanks, man. You know what's funny? When I was in Congress, I always thought politicians were the only ones who were afraid to tell it like it is. But man, even in this business, people don't do it. You're like one of the rare ducks that does.
It's amazing, and like we've seen, boy, have they tried to shoot this duck down.
Yeah.
It's but look, I've retreated back to the Alamo, and I'm making a stand. I'm fighting because it really is. We are at the point where there is a genuine fear from people to speak openly and honestly about a lot of topics, and race is, I think, at the forefront of this. You cannot speak openly and honestly about race, and whenever anyone says we need an open dialogue about race, they're lying to you. This isn't true. They want you to parrot what their opinions and their thoughts are on race. And the second you go off their worksheet, you are indeed, and I've seen you call this and me, a racist, a white supremacist. I mean, they break out these terms that just a few years ago were genuinely horrific terms that are now being used for just disagreeing with people.
And you know what, Anthony? It's working because people are scared to death to be labeled a racist. If you get labeled a racist, your career's done. You'll never run for office again. You'll lose that TV show. You'll lose your movie. It's a career killer. It's almost like being called a racist. The other one is you say anything bad about a Muslim. Oh my God, you're going to be tarred and feathered in the public square. That's what I'm finding.
Yeah, but another thing, you can't say anything about Muslims. But
no.
Man, Christianity's fair game. Judaism is fair game. And I guess that's because they treat people, for the most part, very civilly, very 2014, and not in archaic Muslim fashion. So you can understand people's fear, but I don't understand the people that back it. A lot of the politicians and white guilt I see a lot of. They actually back this practice and call it, Islamophobia. You put phobia on the back of any word, and all of a sudden you're toast, right?
You're absolutely toast. Hey, you're right, Anthony. I mean, think about this. Even a lot of Republicans and conservatives who I like, politicians, the minute the Michael Brown thing happened, even a lot of them said, they jumped onto Michael Brown's bandwagon. Oh, the poor black kid. He had his hands up. He was trying to surrender. And then the Eric Garner thing. You saw a lot of politicians like cowards get on that bandwagon because they're so afraid of doing anything that might alienate minorities, blacks, gays, Muslims, you name it.
Yep. Anybody that thinks this isn't a vote number game, and that's the bottom line with all of these politicians, it is purely about keeping their jobs, getting those votes. So you don't want to alienate them. For the most part, they know where their base is in the white votership. White people, very apathetic when it comes to issues like this. You don't see any of the real protesting for these police officers or anything. So they have to grab up these minority votes. Those are your...
Well, Anthony, think of how messed up... You want one vivid example of the fact that this country's in frickin' decline. Think about this. So two punks die resisting arrest in the middle of a crime, and the country protests and rallies and marches. They're outraged. 2 cops die doing their jobs, and what's the reaction? Nothing.
Nothing. We got people on the news, but not this 24-hour news cycle where they're bashing it into our heads. We certainly aren't seeing that. We saw all of the lies. We saw the lies that were being presented by what is supposed to be legitimate news organizations about hands up and about chokeholds and I can't breathe. When you put all that together and you have people that won't even read a newspaper or read one news article past the headline, that is what they are going to believe. There are people that honestly believe Michael Brown was on his knees with his hands up saying, don't shoot, when Officer Wilson put the gun to his head and executed him in the street and then was not indicted because of the racist judicial system. They honestly believe that. And if you can't tell me that this fucking murderer wasn't influenced by that type of rhetoric, you're out of your mind.
Well, here's how you know it's true. When the Michael Brown decision came down, when that grand jury decision came down, and it was the right decision, I think I said on air that night, there will be a cop or 2 or 3 shot at and killed within 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
I got to believe, Anthony Cumia, you felt this thing that happened over the weekend, this doesn't surprise you, does it?
It wasn't a surprise. It's how tragic it is. It still was not a surprise. I believe, and of course I was being a little dramatic, or thought I was, last year when the mayor got into office, de Blasio. But I had spelt out a scenario of how I saw New York decline into those Dinkins year kind of atmosphere that we had back then. I didn't imagine one short year later that we would see the decline as rapid as we have. But yeah, I was talking about police officers being shot at and the trash taken over the street again. This is what we're seeing.
And attacks on cops all over the fucking country are up, Anthony. They're up.
Yep. We had an instance where a gun was put to an officer's head, the trigger was pulled, and if for nothing else than the fact that he was out of ammo, that cop would have been shot in the head. Another officer in Boston was shot at. We had an officer die in Florida.
I'll tell you, you know, and I don't know how I phrase this in a tweet, but this fucking country, you know what we need? We need, like, the NYPD. We need every cop to take 2 weeks off. I mean, just take 2 weeks off and let these damn liberals and minorities, let them take care of their own neighborhoods for 2 frickin' weeks.
Yeah,
and then they'll be on their knees crying and screaming.
Self-police. For people that really don't like the police, the interaction with them is just nonstop. It's this need to have the police in your community. If the police are there all the time, there's a problem, and it's not the police. It's the fact that they will not cooperate with police a lot of times when there's a murder or even drug activity going on in a housing project. You'll never hear people cooperating with the police, and that's part of the problem.
Well, we're starting to see the impact now because you've got, I think the new procedures are no cop can go out on his own.
Mm-hmm.
They're only now going to respond to real hardcore definitive arrests. So they're already scaling back a little bit.
Yeah, it's good for them. Good for the cops, because why how the hell are you supposed to go out and do a job this dangerous and be shit on by the people that you have to protect the most? It's astounding to me, the lack of understanding as to what the police are there for, and the lack of understanding as to what assassinating two police officers mean. It's not just two people being killed by one guy. It's really a comment on the entire community and what they hold important, the values or lack thereof. And it speaks volumes. And that problem is not caused by the police and by law-abiding gun owners and by honest politicians, if you could find a few of them.
You know New York better than anybody. Is de Blasio in real trouble here?
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he's got the backing of so many of the ridiculous left, especially in a statewide poll. I think he'd do very poorly. But in the city, which is he's only the mayor of New York City, I think there's enough stupid liberals that we'll just look at this like we see on Twitter on a daily basis with blinders on, the fog of this racism in their eyes, and they just don't see things for what they are. I can't imagine a more perfectly spelled out scenario than this guy posting that he wants to kill cops because of hashtag Eric Garner, hashtag Mike Brown.
He put it right there.
How do you argue this point to try to make it like it's anything else but an assassination based on this guy's anger about the lies that he's heard with the injustice perpetrated on these two victims?
And, Anthony, that's why frickin' Obama and Holder and de Blasio and all these guys, from day one, they should have said when these decisions came down, respect the decisions. End of story.
Right.
And they wouldn't say that.
They wouldn't. They said that there is a problem we need to address. The judicial system should be fair for everybody. It was. This went through our system, our legal system, the way it has for many, many years. And if the grand jury decides not to indict, and you have a problem with it, then you have a problem with our legal system.
Exactly.
And that's a whole nother issue. But to say that they're looking for justice, justice was served. He went through the system that we in this country hold dear and is supposed to hold us together as a civilized nation. He went through that system and came out the other end without an indictment because they deemed, looking at all the evidence, not the emotion and bullshit we see in the streets and on the news, that he definitely had a right to draw his gun and fire on Mike Brown.
Well, the problem is, my friend, you and I live in a country where 65% of the people don't even know what the fucking Constitution is.
Yes.
And politicians pander to that. It's gross.
The politicians need a stupid public. They need an uneducated public to continue to be elected based on their lies and just the shit that we see on a daily basis. And they have it. Boy, do they have an uneducated public.
Oh, God, Anthony, are we? It's unbelievable. And let's be frank, especially in our inner city urban areas. Bottom line, white, black, or brown, these people are stupid and they don't understand things. They don't know what justice is.
No. Justice apparently is supposed to be revenge, I guess. Without any sense of right and wrong and who is the victim and who is the perpetrator. We are now looking, and I tweeted this a while ago, we're looking at the consequences of bad behavior to be the evil thing. Now, the bad behavior itself doesn't have any bearing on it. It's whatever consequence that bad behavior puts on you is now the evil thing that needs to be looked at and fixed. And the bad behavior is now commonplace. When we looked at the fact that Eric Garner had 31 prior arrests, now regardless of what they were from, because I heard a lot of arguments going, well, they weren't violent crime. I don't know anyone with 2 arrests.
Yeah.
Never mind 31 arrests.
Yeah.
The people I surround myself with and have surrounded myself with my entire life based on who I am and how I was raised and everything, not one fucking person do I know with 2 arrests. 31 arrests is being looked at like, hey, come on, it happens. You can't blame the guy. Can we actually look at that and say it has some bearing on how he handles himself when the police confront him?
You know, we ask them to deal with the crap and the crud and the garbage of society, our cops, and they do the damn best they can. I still say, Anthony, I'd love it if they said to America, screw you, we're taking 2 weeks off.
Oh.
You go defend these neighborhoods.
Yeah, then you would get an outcry from the law-abiding people in these communities that just want to live their life and raise their family and go, hey, what happened? What's
and all
happening?
The wealthy freaking liberals would be screaming.
Yeah, absolutely. The wealthy liberals that have rarely ever seen a bad neighborhood aside from maybe driving past it in a very nice car on their way to somewhere equally as nice as their neighborhood.
If they got lost, Anthony.
Yeah, if they got lost. Roll them up. Roll them up. Lock the doors.
Hey, keep
astounding.
speaking the truth. I love to listen to you, man.
Hey, Joe, I love like I said, I love listening to you. Your Twitter feed is refreshing, to say the least. It's nice to have a comrade in arms out in social media.
Hey, Anthony, I've told this to other people. I've only been on the radio a year and a half. You are my mentor, man. You're one of my mentors.
I love it, Joe. Thanks so much. At Walsh Freedom on Twitter, of course, and WIND AM 560, 5 to 8 p.m. in Chicago. Here in New York, it's WNYM AM 970 from 5 to 7. Joe Walsh, Walsh Freedom on Twitter.
Good luck
thanks
with your
so much.
ex-girlfriend, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. We all have our crosses to bear, Joe.
Oh, God, yeah. Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot. Take care, man.
You got it.